Some things you can do in that situation too is to do an affidavit of heirship, but it depends on the title company whether they'll take it or not. A lot
Yeah.
of people don't like to take them.
So I just it's so funny that you mentioned that because I just had another podcast with another attorney, and she was telling me that in the area that she's working, which is a little bit more north of us in Bell County, that a lot of title companies have sometimes the title company will help you do the affidavit of heirship, and she's telling me that at least in her area, because I think there may have been a title claim at some point with one of these affidavits, maybe they left someone out or something.
Mhm.
And so a lot of title companies up there, according to her, she's like, they're not even doing them anymore because it's
They're
just become
not
too
done a lot
risky.
even here. To tell you the truth, I've done in 25 years, I think I've maybe done 10.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not done a lot, and it really depends on the title company. It
Yeah.
really does. And then when you go to resell it, it depends on the title company when you sell it, and some of them won't accept it, and I've had to do that where they had an affidavit of heirship.
The buyer bought it from the seller who did affidavits of heirship.
Mhm.
That's interesting. I have not seen that. Tell me
And
about that.
so the second, the second sale, when they sold that house, the buyer's title company wouldn't accept the affidavit and heirship with the original estate.
Okay.
We had to go back and do a muniment of title then to get it
Wow.
cleared on that family, track them down and get it cleared. I generally tell people just go to a different title company, but they were far enough along in the process they didn't want to do that.
So in other words, on the first sale, the seller, I'm just kind of explaining a little bit for our podcast. So in the first sale, we had a seller who did affidavits of heirship, and that cleared, helped, that basically cleared the chain of title and lifted any cloud on title that there may have been. And now the buyer now is living in the house. They want to sell the property, and now they're doing the title search on the property, and they're going, hey, wait a minute, the last sale, this last link in this chain of title has this affidavits of heirship. This is risky. We're not comfortable in putting a title policy on it, right? That's what you're telling me. That is actually the most interesting thing I've heard, I think, all month, because I've actually never come across that, actually.
Yeah, yeah,
That's
it's no
very
I've never had
interesting.
it that one time, so it was crazy,
So,
but I get really
so
frustrated with companies because they try to practice law without a license a lot.
right, right. Let me ask you a legal opinion on this because it's kind of interesting. So let's say you're the buyer buying the house and the seller is doing affidavits of heirship. Now, I would say in my experience of all the transactions and I've had a lot of transactions that involve affidavits of heirship, whether on the buy side or the sell side, I've seen it quite a lot. What you're kind of saying is that there's actually a potential risk when you're a buyer buying a house that has used affidavits of heirship. That's basically what you're telling me. Is that correct?
There's a small risk because, as I said, I've only had it happen once in 25 years, so I
Yeah.
wouldn't dissuade people. I mean, I prefer to use an affidavit of heirship rather than do the muniment of title because it's cheaper and quicker. We just get the affidavit done, and then we probate that second will, and we're done. But there's now I've discovered, a very small risk that the next title company might not take it. I mean,
That's
again,
very interesting.
if they change title companies first, and let's go with that, see if because most of them will take it. But, you just have to, sometimes that's the easiest solution,
Now,
so,
I'm
but there
sorry.
is, anytime you do anything that's not the normal progression of a will with letters of testamentary and probate, there's a risk.
Right,
What
right.
mean your title, whether it's a heirship affidavit, there's a small risk.
Yeah. That's very interesting.
When somebody sells a house under a power of attorney, there's still a small risk.